CoachSource's First Friday webinar for May. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm Mary Dombrowski. I'm the Senior Vice President of Client Engagement with CoachSource, leading both our current client teams as well as creating new client partnerships. For those of you not familiar with CoachSource, we are the largest pure-play global executive coaching firm. We've been in business for 18 years and have over 1,200 coaches globally that we deploy for leadership transformation, typically at the director level and above, including C-suite and board. CoachSource hosts webinars such as this on the first Friday of every month. At CoachSource, we believe that inspiring leadership transforms organizations. First Friday gatherings are dedicated to empowering HR business partners and leaders of talent with insights, strategies, and expert guidance on leveraging executive coaching to drive organizational excellence. And if you have any specific topics you would like to see us cover, feel free to email me, mary@coachsource.com. I would love to hear from you. Our topic today is on aligning executive coaching with organizational culture and strategy. Our presentation is going to run for about 45 minutes, after which we will open the floor for Q&A. That being said, we also welcome you to use the chat for questions that you have in real time, and we'll do our best to address those. So I am joined today by my colleague, Diane Bailey-Boulay, who is a CoachSource VP of Strategy and Client Success. Diane is also an executive coach and an author with a career in leadership development, DEI, and business communication. So welcome, Diane.
Thank you, Mary.
As I mentioned, our other VP, Scott Lund, is also on the call today. And while Diane and I will mainly be leading the conversation, we have invited Scott to jump in. Originally, I did want him to be part of it, then he was going to be out, then he was back in, so you know how things like that go. But we welcome his participation as well. So together, we're going to discuss what we know from our client engagements that makes for successful deployment of executive coaching inside organizations, and the really crucial role of aligning executive coaching to your organization initiatives and cultures. So we want to talk about where these coaching engagements can go awry and how to best set your organization up for success. Jason, could you advance to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we all know that leadership development is more important than ever. Companies are so focused on attracting and retaining top talent. We continue to see, I mean, it sounds cliche to say there's massive ongoing transformation, but there's massive ongoing transformation that employees are dealing with. And one of our clients said the other day, you know, you can't even go back to who your leader was a few years back to ask them how did they deal with this, because they didn't face the challenges that people are facing today. And so we've got this rapid and massive ongoing transformation. We've got these new challenges that aren't previously been faced. We have still what is the latest jobs report just came out this morning. It's still a 3.9% unemployment rate, so very low relatively. And last year I attended a CEO conference where the sentiment among CEOs that talent attraction, training, and retention would continue to be one of their top issues for at least the next 3 to 5 years. So this is something that we don't see going away. And we know that executive coaching, properly deployed, can be one of the most effective levers to guide leaders through transformation. Diane or Scott, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think that really sums it up beautifully, Mary. Yeah, just that certainly speaking across the different clients that I work with, this is the reality that they're managing. And so I think probably anyone on this call can relate to this.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I would just jump in to add in these dynamic environments where the organizations need to be agile. We don't have time to set up and design a leadership program and deploy it against the leaders that are going to be taking the charge of our most important initiatives. And so coaching, as we know, is a place one-to-one where you can surgically deploy, executive development where it's going to have the greatest impact for the business. So I think especially when turnaround times and cycle times are so low, it becomes even more important in those environments.
Yeah, thank you. Jason, would you move to the next slide, please? So, we often refer back to the coach maturity model and that move from being in a casual situation, up through a coaching culture. And of course, we're all at different places on this, and even within different programs and initiatives can be at different places along this curve. But we always just like to move back to that and know you're doing our best to advance through. Jason, could you go to the next one now? So some of the areas where, as we're moving through that along that coach maturity model, some of the areas where we see coaching go awry and situations that are happening when clients come to us to try to help fix a situation. One of the biggest ones is that leaders are finding their own coaches, that they're going out to their network, perhaps a former colleague, perhaps somebody they met at the gym, who knows, right? But leaders, word of mouth, are finding their own coach. And with that comes inconsistent coach quality. It can also be that when a leader is finding their own coach, one of the challenges that comes up is that that coach may or may not be familiar with what the culture is inside of an organization. And so while the coach may be giving perfectly valid advice to a leader, it may not be applicable at all to the environment that that leader is working in. So when there's that misalignment, it could actually be counterproductive to the organization goals, to the leader's advancement, to do that. But this is one of the biggest things that we find when people are coming to us is they'll frequently refer to it as, it's the Wild West here. Everybody's just picking their own coach and finding somebody. And it's just not working. And so we talk about inconsistent coach quality. I mean, we're all aware, I think, of the proliferation of coaches that have come out. So, how many years of experience do they have? Are these coaches being properly vetted? Is the experience relevant or pertinent to the organizational challenges, to the leader level? So that quality of coach can become a situation. I mean, I think, we've probably all seen advertisements for coaches on Indeed, which, gives a little pause as to, okay, like what are the qualifications then of somebody coming in? And it's one of the areas that we focus on very strongly is the vetting of the coach population. We talked a little bit about already the misalignment with organizational culture, that it's really important that the coaches that are coming in understand that culture. This is really critical, especially in role transitions. So when someone is new to an organization, they may say, I'll go get a coach that'll help me in this new position. But one of the most important things that we're doing in coaching for role transition is that understanding what this culture is that you're coming into in this organization, and that may or may not be occurring. Not having clearly defined goals or a clearly defined time frame for the coaching engagement is another challenge that comes up. So how are we going to know that we achieved success if we never said from the beginning what we would like the outcome of this engagement to be? What's the purpose of it? There's issues that come up when coaching is not being properly deployed, using it for remediation. We had a client last month from Zillow who talked about when she first came into the organization, coaching was seen as the stick, not a piece of professional development, but something that was not a good thing if somebody said you needed a coach. And then a lack of measurement. I don't know, Diane, Scott, if you want to add anything from what we've seen with clients coming in.
Well, yeah, I wanted to pick up. I saw, Ed, your comment about that anyone can call themselves a coach. And this is, this is one of the places where it can go awry, that there's people out there who, anyone can hang a shingle and say, I'm a coach. And equally important, are they actually coaching, or are they really being consultants or telling you what to do? And those sorts of things can cause some real confusion and misalignment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's, Jason, can we move to the next slide, please? So really the first step in getting to a successful deployment of executive coaching is looking at what are the organizational challenges that executive coaching is being used to address. So really important for the leaders inside organizations to say, okay, what is it that we're trying to do? And understanding as well that you've got limited resources. So prioritizing what, we may have 5 initiatives that we want to do over the next 5 years, but now what are the most important ones that we want to get to? So really looking at clearly identifying the goal that you have and the business problem that you're seeking to address by bringing in coaching. So we're going to run through some common examples that we have seen when clients are coming in, and we're designing coaching engagements for them. So one is enhancing or fixing team performance. So a few months ago, we did, I think it was our February, where we did a case study with Electronic Arts on a team coaching engagement where we had a team that needed to be performing better and was at a crisis point and did a successful team coaching engagement. More recently, we're being asked about being proactive and perhaps having a coaching engagement at the beginning of a new team developing, so that we can get the team off on what are the goals, where are you going, and get them working cohesively. So so team performance is one area. Developing, Diane, do you want to talk about developing the diverse
so
pipeline?
Organizations are really committing and focused on developing a diverse talent pipeline. And so now what we're seeing is clients coming to us and saying, hey, we're focused on developing this pipeline. We'd like to embed coaching as part of that. So, for example, I call it almost the Matryoshka, the Russian doll effect, where you have one thing and then you're embedding something in the other. So we have coaching that is part of a mentoring program, a strategic mentoring focus on a diverse talent pipeline, and helping them see themselves in that organization for the long term and giving them the sort of enterprise insights. So part of that comes from the mentoring, but then the coaching is to help them get the self-awareness to understand how to navigate and move forward.
Yeah, and then we did talk about earlier the role transitions, support executives new to a company or new to a role. And this can be, we've got a client that we're working with that has an international rotation program. So when you're placing somebody new in a role internationally, and now we've got cultural issues that come into play as well. New to a company, as we talked about previously, and then new to a role, that there's this seen as a kind of a sweet spot of having a 3, 4, 6 month engagement for a new leader to really help them get to get hit the ground running and get acclimated quickly and be able to be successful. I think it was, I believe it was March that we did a topic on coaching for role transitions, and the numbers are astounding about how many people leave a position, when a new position, because they just couldn't get the clarity on the role, on their place in it, maybe not a good fit with the company, but just weren't able to adapt to that. Embedded in a leadership development program is another. So many clients that we have developed created leadership development programs that they overlay executive coaching as part of that. Those can be 9-month, 12-month, 18-month long programs that leaders are put through. And some of these relationships that we have with the clients are so long-standing that we've got people who have gone through the programs and been elevated into higher leadership programs now putting their direct reports through the same program that they had gone through. And then companies are frequently looking to grow and scale. And so it is using coaching to help a leader be able to grow and scale themselves, their team, and with that, the organization. And I'm just going to throw it back to you, Scott and Diane. We've got a few more on the next page, but if there's anything that you want to add to any of these items, and if you're attendees as well, if you've got other comments in there, we'd be happy to see it in chat.
Yeah, there's a big effort on getting leaders. They really have to learn to delegate in this environment, as people are doing the cost cutting and trying to find more efficiency and productivity. The spans of control are expanding. I was talking to an organization recently where they were moving from about 12 directs, which already sounds high, to closer to 18. And how does a leader do that without spending all their day or all their week in one-on-ones? And so
Mhm.
they have to learn to lead in new ways and figure out new ways to operate these teams so they can do it sustainably. So coaches can be a great support as they figure those kind of things out.
Yeah, just building on that. Yeah, there's a lot of focus on empowering through coaching, helping leaders learn how to empower their teams and not be the experts themselves on everything because they can't do everything. And how do you help them make that transition so that they're actually getting out the best of the people who report to them.
Mhm. Great. Jason, can you advance to the next slide, please? So some of the other use cases that we're seeing, enacting marketing competitiveness and transforming the business. And Diane, you had a specific example about this that you wanted to share.
Well, we have one organization that is really entered a new market in a new way, and it's a really competitive market. So how can they actually both transform the business and stand up a new business, and really, survive in a more competitive market than they had to navigate before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is one of their values as well, if I recall, or one of their, I should say, strategic initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
about having that, having the market competitiveness, having the lead place on the market.
That's right.
And another that, an area that we feel CoachSource has a very specific expertise is in facilitating the growth of leaders who have very strong functional or technical expertise to be able to move into leadership roles and moving to be leaders of people. And we have seen that certainly within the tech sector, within healthcare, within pharma, even in some of our financial services clients where people are very effective deal makers, but now need to become effective people leaders. So that's one area where I think probably it's safe to say that CoachSource actually became known from the beginning with such a strong focus on tech for so long, but has moved out into other sectors. And then the one-on-one and team coaching for new C-suite executives, new C-suite teams, so that for them to work collaboratively and achieve organizational strategic initiatives as well. So we recently had a situation with a longstanding C-suite team, but a new leader to that team, and then looking at doing a team coaching engagement to help them not just get on the same page with what are these initiatives, but actually going through and implementing, right? Because we're going to hit bumps along the way in those kinds of engagements. Toss it back to you, Scott and Diane, if you have anything that you want to, other use cases you want to add or other examples that you want to discuss.
Yeah, thinking of that, someone who's new to the C-suite, this sometimes the added challenge of that is they may be following in the footsteps of someone who was, for the lack of a better word, beloved and or highly charismatic or both. And then, so how do they step into that role and do it their way in a way that is not trying to be a clone of whoever was there before, because that's not really possible, but to bring the best of who they are into that role.
I just think one way that coaching is helpful in that transition of the technical leader into the people leader is so much can be context dependent, and it's hard to design a program or training that covers all of that. So a coach with that kind of experience that can help them ask the right questions, think about their own context, and kind of make a plan to start to shift their behavior and their style and their strategy with their team can be really helpful because it is so bespoke sometimes, the situations these leaders are in.
I think that speaks well, Scott, also to the culture issues, right? Because part of what you're doing as a leader of people is helping others navigate the company culture, whatever that is. And each company's culture is so unique. So, so I think that that's another that ties in with that as well, is that culture part of it, because that is part of being successful in a company, right? Is understanding how do I navigate what the unique culture is here and fit in with that.
That's right.
Okay. All right, Jason, we're ready to go to the next slide. Great. So now we want to get into some of the best practices that we see to ensure the strategic and culture fit with the organization. And so we'll walk through these. The articulating the initiatives that coaching is being used to address is first and foremost what we would be asking a client who comes to us, is for us to understand what is that. Some of this comes through with CEO conversations. Some of this comes through earning reports. Somebody just yesterday, sent us their value statement, and they have an acronym for what their values are, and this is who we are, and we want to embody it. So understanding what are the challenges that the leader is going to be addressing, what's going to be important within the organization, that you want to use coaching for. So whether that be a leadership development program or that mentoring program for the diverse talent pipeline, as Diane mentioned, or the role transition, you may, or often following mergers and acquisitions. This is another area where you're trying to bring the cultures of two organizations together and get on the same page in terms of what those strategic initiatives are. So really looking at, as I mentioned earlier, there's a resource issue here too, in terms of, you can't pursue everything. So having some prioritization about what it is to be pursued. There also can be multiple engagements, and Scott or Dan, I don't know if you'd speak about this, where we may be working across an organization on different initiatives within the organization. So I know we've got a few examples of that, and if either of you want to speak to some of those examples.
Well, I think part of it again is what levels it's being used. So, if you're trying to create a pipeline of talent, bringing people up, getting the next creating the future leaders of the business, that's one level. Then above that, if you're working to advance the strategic initiatives, and again, for example, how are they staying innovative and competitive in the marketplace? That's another possible.
Mm-hmm.
They're all going on at the same time, but for different reasons. But they're all still pointing to the same strategic directions and goals.
Right, and Scott, go ahead before.
Oh yeah, thank you. I was just going to say, when it comes to this first point, it can be useful to visualize a matrix with columns and rows, and the columns could be your initiatives, the key initiatives that are going on for the organization, and maybe you even know priority order for those. And then your rows are the different parts of your organization, each which will be playing roles in achieving those initiatives successfully, but to varying degrees. And can you kind of imagine kind of a heat map in that matrix of where the organization components are going to be most contributing to the initiatives, and do those areas need support? And could coaching be a good intervention to help them succeed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm thinking also that with some of our clients where we may be working on a leadership development program, we may also be getting a request to do some work with the C-suite. There may also be a team coaching situation. So within the organization, the people that we're working with are identifying the different initiatives amongst different groups, different populations of employees within that. Group coaching, again, is coming up a bit as sometimes a more economical approach to something like a leadership development program. So those initiatives can come up as well. So I think your point is well taken, Scott, that you've got different areas of the organization that can be working on different initiatives and looking for different outcomes as a result of that too. Needless to say, the second point on here is finding the right executive coach provider for the initiatives that you're doing. So looking at the coach population over the last couple of years, I know we have received some new client engagements because we have such a diverse coach pool, and that was one of the key differentiators in CoachSource being chosen, was that we're able to coach to provide a coach population that mirrors the employee population or the population that's going to be coached. And that's been something that was very important. Just yesterday, we had a client asking us about what is our coach population in India, that they have a specific need within India, and what can we provide that way? And so we're able to address those kinds of needs. So looking at what is the leader population to be coached, and then what are the outcomes that you're looking to achieve, and then what, choosing the right coaching provider from that. Scott or Diane, do you want to add anything to that point?
Well, just thinking about the feedback we had from a leader a few months ago, where she said she was a African-American woman and leader, and she said for the first time in her maybe professional development experience, the coaches we recommended for her, she saw coaches that she said, I think someone here will understand my experience in a way that other coaches may not. And she said, it just was really a powerful experience for her. She was really inspired by that.
Yeah.
I guess I might just add that you want to make sure that their coach network is a good match for you, kind of like you were saying. You want depth, the strength and the quality of the coaches, and you also want some breadth, because there are those edge cases that come up. Like we had a technology firm they needed a coach that could do it in ASL. So where do you find a coach that can do sign language for your leader? And having the breadth of the network can help you tap into those kind of edge cases that you need to address.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. That is another thing that happens, right? Is people frequently say, like, I know I can bring the tricky ones to you.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
And we're able to find those leaders. So the next part that we look at is identifying the leader population to be coached, as well as the pivot points where coaching will be deployed. So, one of the challenges inside organizations is who, and we just went through this with a client just in the last few months, right, Scott, where it was like, how are we going to identify these leaders that we want to come through this program? And we know we want to provide coaching for this population, but how do we identify who they are? And that's something then that the organization has to really give thought to. Not only who are the leaders that they want to, right? For what purpose am I doing? Am I doing C-suite, succession planning? What's the goal here? Is it the diverse pipeline that we really want to focus on? So looking at who are those leaders, and then when and how will coaching be deployed for them? So we find a lot of instances where the assigning of a coach is tied to the performance review process. So something within the performance review process that says, okay, now it's time for you to get a coach. But I don't know, Scott and Diane, if you want to add more to this, because I know that this is one of the most thoughtful places, once you get past the strategic initiatives, one of the most thoughtful places that companies get into is identifying that population.
Yeah. And it is often, those key transition points. And you touched on it earlier, Mary, when you talked about leaders new in role, and whether new to an organization or they've been there a long time and now they're in a completely different role. And it's that being successful in their first 90 days to 6 months it's different than being new, but it's a whole new role. And it's a great point of support to have the coaching at those key moments of transition.
Yeah. I guess the thought that comes up for me here is, and it goes back to something that Mary said earlier about proactivity. How do leaders in our organization end up being able to access coaching? Is it reactive, just whoever puts their hand up, we see about getting them a coach? Or is it more proactive, that we have a thoughtful point of view on where coaching could be most impactful for achieving the organization's initiatives, kind of back to point one, and how we make coaching accessible, make people aware, as well as how we figure out how is it funded? Is it out of the business unit or is it out of the center? These are all questions that can help us make sure that the right people are getting to use our coaching budget.
That's right.
Yeah. So this question just came in. Is it best to start a coach before the successor goes into the new role, or when they are in the new role? I mean, in general, we see that happening as somebody comes into a new role, right? For many of our clients, that's a policy, that
Yep.
when somebody comes into a new role, they are assigned a coach at that time.
Yep.
Anything
We
either of you want to add?
Yeah, just when it comes to this point of being proactive about who's getting the coaching, one of our recent conversations with someone saying we realized maybe we haven't been as intentional about the deployment of coaching, and we think a place to start would be with our successor bench. And so this would lean towards we've identified people and we think they are the right candidate, but maybe we have already identified a few areas that we want to get them a little bit stronger. And so working with those successors in advance of the move to the role can help them be more successful when they are in seat.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Scott. That we do see where somebody is tagged as a potential, right, successor pipeline, but understanding they need some development in this area or that area, in order to move from director to VP or VP to EVP, or up into the C-suite. So there's often a coach deployed in advance of that to help them get to that next level. And then as well, when somebody is new to a role, like then, and it may be a different coach, right? Maybe the same coach, maybe a different coach that takes them to be with them as they enter that new role. I think that part of intention is really important, of being intentional about how and when coaching does get deployed. There was one other thing that I wanted to add to that, but it'll come back to me. And Michael, question, what are your thoughts around coaching small groups of executives at the EVP or SVP level around common topics? So a group coaching engagement. We're actually going to do group coaching will be the topic of our June First Friday. We haven't put that out there just yet. And Jeff Nally is our group coaching expert. But in general, I would say I think group coaching, and Scott and I, I'm going to ask you to jump in, of course, as well. But I think the thing with group coaching is that it helps create cohesion, right, within the organization. And so that's one of the one of these areas where you enable people to work better together as a team. When you do something like a group coaching engagement. And I say that team in a different way than team coaching, but just as a, when you talk about in the larger context of organizational cohesion. Scott, do you want to add something?
I think it's an interesting question. A lot of times we see the group coaching lower in the organization, especially with managers from all different functions and capabilities, or just working on basics and kind of moving up that way. At the senior level, it's interesting because they start to be real functional specialists. Am I an IT person? Am I a finance person? Am I on the marketing side? And so what would be the topic that they would be engaging on? Sometimes it could be, it starts to blend with that team coaching aspect, I think, because in some ways at that level, they are collaborating a lot. They start to be a little bit of an intact team, even if the reporting relationships aren't to each other.
Yeah.
And so, you would have to figure out what's the content or focus that would make it useful for them, because as we'll often say, the real cost of coaching it's not the money, it's the executive's time. All these executives have such a high opportunity cost. We have to make sure it's very valuable for them. That will get them to show up and participate. So I think it's an interesting question, Mike. I'd want to think about it even more.
Yeah. I just want to add to it too. Oh, go ahead, Mary. What?
No, I just wanted to go back to Scott. Remember, we were just talking to one of our clients about it's actually a shift in how they're going to do decision making and planning.
Right.
Remember, right?
Yep.
And so that would be a group coaching at a senior level where they want real behavior change in how decisions are going to be addressed inside the organization. So that's an example of senior levels where group coaching could be, because it's around a similar topic, right? This is a organizational culture change that we want to make, and we want our senior leaders to be on the same page. So that would be one example that came up recently.
Yeah.
Paula, I saw you put LT team coaching, but forgive me, I'm not sure what LT refers to. So if you
leadership
could
team.
leadership team. Thank you. Thank you. So got it. All right, perfect. Yeah, that's a great topic. Actually, that's true. We can take a look at that. And then Jason, could you advance to the next slide, please? Jason? Oh, okay. Jason.
I think we went this is the next slide, isn't it?
Yeah,
Number
this is
4.
the next slide. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Did I not number them right? Let me see. Oh, okay, thank you. So, okay, the other thing really important from the beginning is to understand how success is going to be measured. So from the beginning, we really want to look at what are the outcomes that we're seeking to achieve through this engagement. And that way we can set up the metrics in advance so that we can take a measurement pre and a measurement post and have a delta to look at what's happened. So this is something that we often, this goes back to, right, well, we should bring in coaching. Okay, why? So once we know the initiatives, once we know the leaders that we want to have coaching with, now we look at how are we going to understand the way that success is going to be measured. So it's really important to put that out there. And I don't know, Scott or Diane, if either of you can speak to some of the metrics. We often see what are the top 3 that always come up: executive presence, communication. We're just looking
And
at this.
another big one is
Influencing
it's
others.
interesting. It doesn't matter what, it seems to be across industries and it's global from what I'm seeing right now. Is executive presence, influencing others, and that means up and across and all over, and then communication skills.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, and that runs across. We see that
It's fascinating.
it's,
Yeah,
and it's 1, 2, 3 by far. Like
by far.
number
Yes.
4 is down here.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
again, it doesn't matter what industry or what area of the world, it just seems to be that's the consistent, focus right now of coaching.
Right, and that's, yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, I was going to say, measurement's a really interesting topic for every organization.
Yes.
Clients are coming at it from all different angles. Sometimes they're trying to have a standardized measure that they're using for the effectiveness of multiple interventions that they're using for leadership development, with their programs and with their internal coaching, with their external coaching, they're trying to standardize. People are looking at a mix of both quantitative measures as well as qualitative feedback that is often, asking leaders, how did this change you? Would you recommend it? Those sorts of things. We also find that measurement will kind of vary by the level of the leader. There's a lot of times the C-suite is really not interested in having anyone measure anything about them. They will tell you if it worked or not.
That's right.
And if they're happy. Yeah, but for larger populations where the C-suite is deciding, do we give more money to that? Yeah, they want to see some sort of metric that's showing them there is an impact, for that investment.
Right, looking at promotion rates, looking at retention rates, things such as that. I know that there was one client that talked about how tracking retention, to get ahead of a problem. There was another client who talked about employee survey that had a specific question on it that was a tell as to whether retention was going to become an issue over time. So looking at how success is going to be measured is really important. Then a prioritization of the match process, so critical. And this is one of the areas I certainly think where we excel in our client services team is really understanding what is the leader population to be coached and drilling down to the specific leaders and getting into that match process of what's going to be most important in matching a coach to a leader. And and then oftentimes with the coach and leader having a chemistry call to be sure that there's a good fit. And I don't know if there's anything more that Scott or Diane that you want to add to this really crucial part of ensuring success within a coaching engagement.
Well, I think that the match piece is, sorry, Scott, but let me just jump in. The match piece is really where I think what's so critical about it is that the leader really has a stake in who their coach is, and they're choosing their coach. And that's very different than us saying, hey, here's your coach, or their organization telling them that.
Yeah, I was kind of going to give a shout out to all the directors at CoachSource because
know.
they are often coaches themselves. They are very passionate about this work. They know that the quality of that match makes all the difference to the effectiveness of the engagement and the leader experience. And so they really put a lot of smarts and heart into
Yeah.
making sure that these matches are good.
We always say it's
Absolutely.
part art, part science. So there's certain
Yeah.
criteria we're looking for that's important, but then there's also having that sort of extra insight about who those coaches are and having heard from the leader what's important to them and what's on their minds around it.
Yeah, really crucial part of it. And there's Andrea, part magic. We call Andrea, I called her the matching maven.
Yep, it's true.
I know, I saw Zia on the call as well. So Zia, Andrea, Charmaine, and Jamie are amazing client services director team. And then the last part that I'll add to this that's really critical is having an iterative feedback loop. So really keeping on top of not just what's going on within a specific engagement, but the bigger picture of what's going on inside the organization. What is the coach pool that has been assigned inside that organization? What are the leader challenges that they're dealing with? How do we get feedback while maintaining confidentiality back to the HR leadership? How do we create that information flow so that the coaches are aware of what they need to be aware of within the organization? So we spend a lot of time on really reporting back and having conversations with our clients around how do we just make sure that this feedback loop is coming through in reporting, et cetera. So that part of it is really crucial as well. And we at CoachSource have some very specific tools that we deploy in creating that iterative feedback loop. So and we find that those are some of really our strongest client relationships and engagements where that occurs. So I want to be mindful of the time and give an opportunity. We're at about, Jason, you can move to the next slide, please. We're at about 15 minutes to the hour. And I'm sure that most of us probably have commitments at the top of the hour. So we wanted to create an opening for some Q&A if people have any questions. To remind you that first Friday in June is Friday, June 7th, and Jeff Nally is who leads our group coaching process. Practice will be leading a session on group coaching. So we'll encourage you to sign up for that. And if you have any topic ideas that you would like to see covered, we've got one already coming from this session. Please email me, mary@coachsource.com. Equally, if you do want to have any conversation about how to better deploy coaching within your organization, welcome the opportunity to have that conversation with you. And with that, I'll open the floor up to Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to put it in chat or raise your hand. I know we had a very shy group last month, and we didn't have much come up. But if either of you have further points that you want to add, we can chat a little bit more. I just wanted to open up and to make sure everybody's questions are addressed. Okay, well, if not, then I will give everybody 14 minutes back from the session. And thank you all very much for joining us today. We will be posting this replay on our First Friday page and also be sending out the replay to everyone who registered. So we look forward to seeing you again next month.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.